So we are back once again looking at the voting for this season's Player of the Season, specifically the Premier League. You can, of course, jump on Transfermarkt where you'll find our Player of the Season voting tool. You can click into that. You can look at and vote for players in just about every major league in Europe this season. But today, this week on our YouTube channel, we are looking at the Premier League specifically. We've done the goalkeepers, we've done the defenders, so it only makes sense that we now do the midfielders. And guys, this is once again a very crowded and a very competitive, I can't even speak. It's a very good category, shall I say, of top players. I'll put them up on the screen now. We've also got Rodri at Manchester City, Declan Rice at Arsenal, Martin Odegaard at Arsenal, Alexis Mac Allister at Liverpool, Cole Palmer at Chelsea, and Aston Villa midfielder Douglas Luiz. Guys, let's get started with Rodri. Considered one of the most underrated, overrated players in the Premier League, if you will. It seems like everyone talks about how no one appreciates him, except that seems to always come up. And obviously, as we can see here, he's obviously getting plenty of attention from us since he's obviously in the running for Player of the Year. Ben, I'll start with you. We all kind of know what Rodri does, but for anyone who hasn't been watching the Premier League or has been living under a rock somewhere and doesn't know how this Manchester City team works, why don't you just explain what Rodri does so well for Pep Guardiola's team?
Yeah, I think to look at Rodri's importance to this Man City team, you only have to look at the fact that he hasn't lost a Premier League game for Man City in over a year, and the 3 games they've lost this season, he hasn't played. I think that tells you all you need to know. I think he's Man City's most important player. I think he's Man City's hardest player to replace. I think he's probably the best holding midfield player in world football. It is a position that does often, historically, get overlooked because people want stats of goals and assists, and that's not a holding midfield player's job. I'm sure a lot of Man City fans will tell you Rodri's a serious contender for this award. For me, he just misses out maybe because of that historical bias of not giving it to holding midfield players. But he's had a fantastic season. I think it's very hard to argue with anyone that would back Rodri for this award this season.
Yeah, Ewan, I feel like a good way of kind of gauging how maybe underrated he actually is a player is that when we look now towards the Euros, people talk about the contenders for the competition. They say Jude Bellingham, could really push England on. Kylian Mbappe could really push on France. Germany are kind of coming along now with Florian Wirtz in there. But no one ever even seems to think of the idea of Rodri dragging Spain quite far in that competition. I feel like that almost kind of explains why, for some bizarre reason, he's never really in the talk amongst when we discuss the best players in the Premier League and, as a result, the best players in the world.
That's a perfect segue for me to mention that Rodri's 72-game unbeaten record for Manchester City has lost for Spain to Scotland, so that's perhaps why.
And he wasn't happy about it.
No, he certainly wasn't. He took it really, really well. But incredible player. Like Ben mentioned, I think he's probably Guardiola's most trusted lieutenant on the pitch. He plays him all the time. When he doesn't play, you see the kind of drop off. Him and Declan Rice are the best 2 holding midfielders in the league. I think Rodri's been Manchester City's best player this season, but like Ben, I probably think he doesn't win this award, which could be quite strange because if City do win the league, I think City will win the league. He's probably the player that deserves the Player of the Season from the champions more than anybody else. But I think there's maybe been more eye-catching performers in the league this season, especially at a time where stats are so prevalent in terms of attacking players and goal contributions. I think Rodri might just miss out on that, but I think he's an exceptional football player. Just incredible.
Yeah, well, you mentioned him there. We'll probably move straight on to him. Declan Rice at Arsenal is obviously the next contender. Go back to you there actually, because you mentioned Rodri. Is Declan Rice Arsenal's Rodri? Is that why they spend that much money on him? Is that what he's brought to Mikel Arteta's team? And is that why he's now in the contention for Player of the Season this year?
Yeah, I think of all the signings in the summer, I think Declan Rice and potentially Cole Palmer will be the 2 signings of the season. I think when Rodri came into Arsenal, most people probably thought he'd had that holding role like he had at West Ham when he kind of played as that number 6. But obviously Mikel Arteta, as the season progresses, moving forward, gave him more license to get forward. I think it's something like 16 goal contributions in the Premier League this season, which is incredible for a player who's viewed predominantly as a holding midfielder. He also takes set pieces for Arsenal on occasion now, and we know how prolific Arsenal have been from set pieces. He's been a great signing. I don't think you ever really see a player who signed for around about 100 million a snip, but he represents good value for money in the market. He's incredibly reliable. He plays pretty much every week. He doesn't get injured. He's a leader. He's a good age. It's been a fantastic signing for Arsenal, and it shows sometimes that when you've got a team which is moving upwards in the right direction, you are better maybe adding one big player in the summer rather than looking for 2 to 3 players at a bargain.
Yeah, Ben, as you said there, we've almost taken for granted that Ben Rice, Declan Rice, would work out at Arsenal after that big money signing, but it doesn't always work out, and maybe we should take a minute to appreciate how much work Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have had to do to make his kind of move from West Ham so seamless this season.
Yeah, I mean, as the Arsenal fans sing, Declan Rice, we got him half price. And to be honest, if Arsenal had paid 200 million for him, I don't think there would have been any complaints the way he's played this season. He's really taken Arsenal to another level. It's interesting about his position. Arteta alluded to it a few weeks ago, but he kind of suggested that the original plan was to play him in that left 8. But obviously with the injuries to Thomas Partey and Partey missing the majority of the season, he was forced to, in the earlier parts, play that holding role. And then we saw Jorginho, as he progressed, come in, and now that Partey's back, Rice is playing a little bit further forward. But yeah, I think he's a real key part of why Arsenal is still in this title race and why we've seen a little bit more still from them at the business end of the season. He's a real leader in there, and winning the ball back is so important to Arsenal. The way they box press teams in, it's so important. His legs and his stride is so important. He reads the game really well as well. So the amount of interceptions he gets, the amount of times he wins it back, and he's very tidy on the ball as well. And you mentioned as well, he's adding goals to his game and assists. And it's been an incredible first season for him. And he wouldn't be my pick, but I could understand why he would be anyone's. It's been a great season.
Yeah, well, one of the main contenders alongside Declan Rice, his own teammate Martin Odegaard, who we'd mentioned to the top of the show. I must admit, he's probably who I'm gravitating towards in terms of who I would vote for. I keep going back to that tie against Bayern Munich in that first leg in London, where Bayern did a decent job of kind of crowding out Odegaard, and all of a sudden Arsenal looked really difficult, or they looked like they were really struggling in the final third to put passes together, create chances. And I think we've seen a lot this season just how important Martin Odegaard is to his team. He's the playmaker. He's the guy who makes that team tick. And Ben, it only makes sense that he's up for this award, because if Arsenal do go on and win the Premier League, then a lot of it will be down to the performances of Martin Odegaard.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a bold chap. I genuinely think he might be the best overall all-round player in the Premier League right now. I think the player that might be above him is Kevin De Bruyne, who has probably been top of that category for a while now, but heading into the twilight of his career, he'll be 33 next month. Martin Odegaard as an all-round player is just absolutely incredible what he does. Like, he's so good to watch as well. His feet in tight areas, the way he scans, he always knows exactly what's around him. Only thing that maybe might go against him for this award, for the first couple of months of the season, he struggled a little bit. He was playing a little bit too high up the pitch and was struggling to get involved. Arteta then made a switch and had him come in deeper and dictating the game more. The fact he's Arsenal's captain at such a young age, at 25 as well, speaks volumes about the talent and leadership he has. For me, he portrays Mikel Arteta on the pitch. If Arsenal win the league, which as we record, it doesn't look like, probably it's not going to happen. It's looking like it's going to be Man City. If Arsenal win it, I would give it to Odegaard. If not, I'd probably say just misses out for me, but another worthy candidate.
Yeah, Ewan, is so interesting how well he's done at Arsenal. It's quite nice to see as well, because he was one of those players who was, touted as a future star from the age of 15 or 16. He obviously got that move to Real Madrid. Everyone had him in Football Manager, FIFA, whatever you want to play. And, he's just one of those stars that we've watched grow up, really. And it's so nice that he's finally realising his potential at a top level like Arsenal, because it didn't, for a long time, it felt like he was just going to burn out and be one of those players that peaked so early, and it didn't quite work out.
Yeah, he's an incredible footballer. You forget how kind of young he is sometimes. He obviously moved to Madrid when he was 16, I think it was, and obviously didn't work out there. But I think the fact that Arteta gave him the captaincy was a real show of trust in his ability, and he's going to thrive, because maybe from the outside looking, a lot of people would have said he doesn't look like that captain material, because people have the kind of this concept that captain should be a screamer and shouter, and Roy Keane, Tony Adams sort. But in modern football, it's a very different role. Incredible player. I'm much like Ben and yourself. I think from January onwards, he's been Arsenal's best player, whereas before I thought it was probably Declan Rice. I think Odegaard may be taking over in that regard. Incredible. He's such a good player. Gary Neville picked him on Monday Night Football as his player of the season, and rightly so. I'll probably go for another player just due to his kind of contribution this season, but I mean, Odegaard's been an outstanding player, and he's probably Arsenal's first name in the team sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. Another midfielder who made the move, much like Declan Rice this season. And I guess now that we look on, 6 or 7 months on, or however long the season is, 10 months. Quite impressive that we're not even really talking about the potential risks that were involved in that. Of course, talking about Alexis Mac Allister moved from Brighton to Liverpool, and Ewan, it's probably fair to say Alexis Mac Allister isn't the favourite for this category just because of the way the Liverpool season has petered out. But we should take a moment just to appreciate how well he's done at Liverpool and how impressive it is he's made that step up. And much like Declan Rice, we're not even really worried or talking about the money involved and the risks that were involved in that move.
Yeah, I mean, if Declan Rice was a steal, then Alexis Mac Allister was an absolute bargain, because it was just over 40 million for a Premier League proven centre midfielder, World Cup winner. There's obviously so much question marks over the rebuild in Liverpool's midfield in the summer with Thiago, Jordan Henderson going out. They brought in a number of players, but Mac Allister's been the pick of the bunch. I think his form's may tailed off a little bit towards the end of the season, just like Liverpool's has as well, but he'll be a huge player next season if as expected, Arne Slot comes in to replace Jurgen Klopp. He'll be the one key cog in that midfield moving forward. They've also got young talented players like Ryan Gravenberch, Harvey Elliott, who's had a really good 2024, Curtis Jones, who had a really good first start to the season. But I think Mac Allister is that midfield player that Slot will look to build around next season.
Yeah, Ben, what have you made of Alexis Mac Allister this season at Liverpool?
Yeah, I think he's been fantastic. I think compared to the three we've already mentioned, he's probably not as much as a contender. But I think he's been a magnificent signing. And like you mentioned, if you take in his transfer fee into account, which was 42 million euros, he's got to be considered for signing another season at least. He's been fantastic. Also, let's not forget, he's played two different roles, a role particularly unfamiliar to him for a lot of the season in holding midfield when Endo had been unavailable, being at the Asian Cup and a few injuries as well, and he's excelled in both roles. I know he did have a bit of a stinker this week against Aston Villa. And like you mentioned, maybe recently with Liverpool, his performance levels slightly dropped off. He played a lot of football as well, so that's maybe understandable. But yeah, brilliant first season, and echo Ewan's thoughts that he's going to be a big player for Liverpool next season.
Yeah, absolutely one for the future. Much like this player we're about to talk about, and one for the future, but also one for the here and now, Cole Palmer. Rival fans like to poke fun at how many penalties he's scored this season, Ben, but he's so much more than just someone who can slot the ball away, 10, 11 yards out, isn't he?
Yeah, I think nobody expected Palmer to have an impact like this season. He's a bit of a controversial one because he counts as our midfield category because primarily he has played more in attacking midfield this season, but it's been an incredible first season. 21 Premier League goals. I know, as you mentioned, some of those were penalties. Also got a lot of assists as well. And also he's doing this in a team that largely have been quite poor throughout the season, or have certainly been below expectations. But he's been the one shining light throughout. I think at his age, what he's done has been incredible. And for me, I think he has to win the award in this category for what he's done in an underperforming team to drag them through. Like, there's a chance now they could get Europe this season. Without Cole Palmer, they'd probably be in the bottom half of the table. He's had a fantastic season, and yeah, for me, probably would get my vote for this category, unless Arsenal win the league.
I was just going to say, Ewan, it's very easy for us to kind of talk very highly of these guys who are in title challenging teams, but for Cole Palmer to put the kind of numbers that he has for a Chelsea team that admittedly have looked a lot better in 2024 than it did first half of the season, but still a team that are all sorts of comings and goings, and a manager who's having to shuffle the pack quite a lot. The fact that Palmer's been one of the few consistent players in that Chelsea team this season, it's a real credit to him and his talent.
Yeah, massive. The other factor as well is that Palmer didn't have a pre-season really with Chelsea because he signed so late in the window from City. Obviously scored for City in the Super Cup final. So yeah, I mean, his numbers are incredible. 31 goal involvements in the Premier League this season. Only Ollie Watkins has more. In 2024 alone, he's got 19 goal involvements in the Premier League, which is 5 more, I think, than Kai Havertz, who's second. And yeah, he's not playing for a top team like Arsenal, Liverpool, or Manchester City. He's playing very much for a team in transition, moving on to a new era. A lot of young players, and Palmer's been a leader. He stepped up when it matters. People talk about his penalty record. He has had a lot of penalties, but he's also had to step up sometimes under immense pressure to put them away. I think of the game against Manchester United, the 4-3 game. He's just an incredible player. He's got to be on the plane for Germany in the summer for England. I don't think he's in contention to start by any means, just due to England's quality and kind of the wide areas in that number 10 role. But he's a player I can't wait to watch kind of progress over the seasons. And I'm not sure if he sat down Pep Guardiola now and say, did he regret selling Cole Palmer? He might get a different answer publicly than he would privately.
Yeah, maybe would have rather seen Jack Grealish move on to Chelsea the way both of them have played this season. But let's move on to the last name on the list, and that's Douglas Luiz. Now, a player who's not likely to win this category, obviously based on the players that are here. But Ben, it just goes to show how well Aston Villa have played this season and how well Douglas Luiz, of course, and that team have done, that, you know, it's imperative that he does get nominated at least through the midfield category, because he has been outstanding, much like Aston Villa this season.
Yeah. I think, like you said, a deserved nomination. But I would say for the majority of people, maybe the sixth most popular among the list we've just been through. He's had a great season, and I think it's quite right that one of Aston Villa's key players is in contention after the season they've had. As we speak, it looks like they've got a very good chance of getting Champions League football next season. He's been a real key part of that. Also stepped up to be penalty taker this season. There'll be a lot of top clubs linked with Douglas Luiz this summer, as there has been for the past 2 or 3 summers. He's one of the best midfield players in the world right now. Always a figure of composure for Aston Villa, and yeah, a deserved nominee for me.
Yeah, it's always going to be hard for a player at a club like Villa, who obviously have done very well, but, you know, usually considered mid-table, top 8, team pushing for European places. It's very difficult for a player in any position, I suppose, which we'll probably go on to in the next video when we talk about the forwards, but particularly a kind of holding midfielder or number 8 like Douglas Luiz, who maybe doesn't rack up all the stats and maybe steal all the headlines, but it's obviously a player that Aston Villa fans and most Premier League fans in general would appreciate as a top midfielder.
Yeah, and 14 goal contributions is still a really good return for a player who's predominantly a kind of more defensive midfielder. I think he's been key to Villa's success. You know, as we speak, they could well qualify for the Champions League tonight, or if Tottenham fail to beat Manchester City, and that would give Villa a lot more power in the transfer market, ability to spend, because there's been speculation that they might have to cash in on one of their key players this summer, and Luiz has obviously a lot of admirers. You constantly hear him getting linked to Arsenal, and when you look at that, I would kind of fit in if they want to play Rice higher with Odegaard as the 2 number 8s, then you may bring in a holding midfielder. Obviously question marks over Thomas Partey long term as well. Luiz would fit that bill, so he's had an incredible season as part of a Villa side who probably been the biggest overachievers this season, maybe in the league, alongside Bournemouth.
Yeah, he has been fantastic, but obviously not as good as John McGinn, who Villa and Scotland fans often remind people is better than Zidane. So yeah, that wraps things up. You can let us know in the comments below who you would vote for, but more importantly, go to the link in the description, head over to Transfermarkt and make your vote for the best goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, forward. And then after that, you'll be asked to pick your player of the season in the Premier League. And of course, you can go across all of Europe's top leagues and pick your players there as well. Let us know what you think of the video, like and subscribe if you enjoy them, and we'll speak to you guys soon.